Hello and welcome to GameRomp Easy Mode, your easygoing gaming podcast where me and my wife talk about, video games, right?
Hi, it's me. I'm Deanna.
Yeah, and I'm David. We're going to talk about some stuff we
Played this last week.
Yeah, we actually played something different for a change.
Says you.
What?
Well, I mean, I don't play games week after week quite like you do, usually. You've been playing Minecraft, I think, for like the past month or more.
Yeah, maybe, with a bunch of different mods. And I still will. I'm looking forward to playing more later today.
So, what has been the new game that you've been playing?
Well, I finally got around to playing the first game from the Epic free holiday thing they were doing.
Oh, yeah. I remember getting Dredge. I don't remember what else I got.
This one was the Astria Six-Sided Oracles. And it's basically...
Is it about dice?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not quite Dicey Dungeons. It's got this really cool art style, actually. That's probably what, first made me notice it. I'm not going to sit here and try to describe an art style, but it's just really nice looking. And it's about, okay, you got your characters that you're playing, and they're trying to, uncorrupt the enemies that they're fighting. So, in the beginning of the game, you'll be, fighting against, either corrupted creatures or, animals and stuff, and then they get healed and they run away.
Oh, that's good.
And, the art style of, I guess it's kind of Eldritch Cthulhu-looking stuff, but,
I was going to say, is there any...
Cosmic horror.
Is there any type of art style that more people would know of that it's vaguely similar to? Is it close to Darkest Dungeon type?
No.
Because it's 2D, right?
Yeah. And the characters you're controlling are little animal people.
Ooh.
The first one you control is this owl lady. And then you get this hammerhead shark dude. And then some alligator triceratops looking guy.
Now, do you pick playing as these characters, or they're just given these characters?
You start with just one. And once you complete a run with that one, you get the other one. Till you get all 6.
Do they fight together, or is it separate?
No, you pick a character and they have their own different play styles.
Gotcha.
Well, gimmicks maybe is more the right word, because it's not like Dicey Dungeons where the UI is completely different. You're still drawing. I guess you can look at it as it's kind of like a deck builder, but your deck is dice.
Right.
And the dice aren't just 1 through 6. They're 6-sided dice, but they're different things on the dice. One dice could have 2 sides that have draw a card or draw a dice, and maybe 2 things that are do 2 damage and draw a dice, etc. Okay. So it's that. One of the characters is more focused on evasion and critical hits. So she'll have oh, this die might be up your evasion or up your crit chance and do a bunch of random damage. So every character has their own little gimmick.
Right. So it's kind of if I want to imagine this, not just 1 to 6 die, and not even just 20-sided die or something, but have you seen those, I don't know, party games or something where the die has words on them?
Yeah.
Do this particular task or something.
Yeah, I mean, they're all 6-sided dice, but there's so many different kinds of dice.
Okay.
And so as you're going through the run, because it's a roguelike, right? You'll start with your starter dice, but then you'll get to pick new dice, and some of them are quote unquote safe dice or balanced dice or risky dice. And basically the more riskier they are, the more negatives are on the dice. But then the positives are really good. So you have to plan out how risky do I want to be, and I don't tend to go very risky, but there's also they have their innate abilities too. Some of the innate abilities could be re-rolling your dice if it didn't come out the way you like.
Right.
Or just doing flat damage or shielding or healing, etc. So it's a combo of picking the dice that you want in your run and kind of making a little build, and then how fun. Yeah, it combines with your character, and it was fun. Yeah, I actually finished it.
Yeah, you said there was the last character that you were kind of annoyed with.
Well, when I had talked to you at that time, yeah, he was the Anubis-looking dude. I really didn't like his playstyle too much, but I played through... Yeah, that was the first time I actually had a game over, was with him. I think he was the 5th character you unlock. And they get more and more complex as they go, I guess. I mean,
Makes sense.
at least that's what the game says. To be honest, the first four are pretty simple to get your head around. But the last two definitely have some stronger gimmicks to them. And yeah, I didn't really like the Anubis guy's gimmick. It was kind of annoying to keep track of in my head because, like, you had to keep track of, like, this additional number that was over his head. And, like, if it was odd, your dice would do one thing. If it was even, your dice and powers do another thing. It's like, oh, God. But then, like, the final character had another thing where he had, like, 4 things to keep track of. But anyway, yeah. I eventually did get, I cleared it with all 6 characters. That unlocks, like, the final boss. So you have to, like, play through it one more time. So I picked my favorite character, which was, I guess, the engineer dude who's, like, this Triceratops thing. They all get access to these little guardian robot things through your playthrough, but he starts with them, and they're, like, better for him than they are for the other characters. And it's fun to just make, like, a build and, like, oh, okay, this time he's focused on just making a ton of shields, and then, like, the robots just shoot their little lasers or whatever. And then, like, the art for the enemies, too, is really... I mean, the art for all of it is really good. I don't know, it's just visually very striking. I like the game visually a lot.
That can also always help with playing new games.
Yeah, I know. I can be really shallow about that, to be honest with you. Like,
I mean, I think a lot of people have been shallow, some more than others, but we all have our things that we look forward to or really just don't like visually.
I don't know if I really want to get into it, but there's definitely been some games that I feel like this would be my jam. I would fucking love this game, and I just never play it because I just don't like how it looks.
It happens.
Anyway, so yeah, I played through that and I finished it. I beat the final boss, which actually caught me by surprise because, like, I thought, oh god, I'm never gonna beat this, and then it's like, oh, suddenly it's dead. Yeah. So
well, that went better than planned.
yeah, I guess my build was really good because the engineer guy that I chose, one of his things is also like I think they call it reactive plates, and basically every time he would take damage, the enemy would receive damage, and I was just stacking a ton of that, so it was like, I guess it kind of snuck up on me on how much damage I was doing by just sitting there healing and stuff.
So does this game tickle your affinity for theory crafting?
A little bit, I guess. I mean, it's also random, because it's random in that same way of, like, Dicey Dungeons is, but even more so.
Yeah, I guess dice are always going to be random.
Like, okay, it's kind of like a deck builder. Like, you can imagine that the dice are like a deck of cards, like in your Pokemon mobile game or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to think about how they're going to go well together and the synergy, but also imagine when you draw your card, you're not just drawing Professor Oak, but you're drawing a Professor Oak dice. So you have to roll that dice, and, like, sometimes it does what you want Professor Oak to do, and then sometimes it just does something else.
Sort of, well, maybe not Professor Oak, sort of like, say, I know I like Jolteon, where you have to flip 4 coins, and for each heads you get is, like, plus 40, but, like, even more so. As in, like, oh, maybe it'll hit, maybe it won't, but maybe it'll do this other trick instead.
Yeah, kind of. Somehow I feel like it's less annoying than those coin flippy Pokemon because...
There's more than just 2 options.
Yeah, and most of the time, as long as you're not picking, like, a super risky dice, which, I mean, they do have their own benefits, but most of the time, like, maybe you're not going to be doing, like... Maybe the dice has, like, for example, there's some dice that are just flat damage, and the dice will just have, like, do 1 damage, do 2 damage, do 3 damage, do 4 damage, and maybe the max is like 5. So maybe there's like a couple 4s, couple 3s, couple 2s. So if you roll that dice and it gets a 4, great. If it gets a 2, well, at least it's still something.
Okay, so it's not just you either do damage or you don't.
Some of the dice can be that way, like some of the more powerful ones too, especially if you're getting into, like, the synergy stuff of, like, building up status effects and stuff. Sometimes they can have negative effects where it's straight up do negative damage.
Oof.
Because in this game, you have the corruption meter, which is basically like an HP bar. Basically think blue numbers and red numbers. Blue numbers good, red numbers bad. So your enemies start with, like, you know, red as their HP, and you want to get it all the way to 0 to make it blue so that they get uncorrupted and become good.
Okay.
And the opposite for you, you got your blue HP bar. Blue heals you, red hurts you. But some of the dice that you get will have red on it, and if you roll a red number, you have to play it.
And that's going to heal the enemy.
It'll heal the enemy or hurt you. So you have to figure out, what am I going to do with this, right? Now, there's some benefits sometimes to hurting yourself, because the more hurt you are, the more access to like innate abilities you will have. So imagine your HP bar, right? Like imagine you have like 7 hearts in Legend of Zelda.
Okay.
Say you take 4 damage. Oof. That'll unlock an ability that you can only do while you have minus 4 HP.
Okay.
So there is that benefit to it too. But, at the same time, you have to be careful, because you don't want to, like, die, right?
Yeah, obviously.
So that is kind of the play, where you figure out how much red damage you can take, how much you can give to the enemy, because not only will you heal them, but then they have over-corruption meters. So not only will you heal them, you can't just use a red dice on a full health enemy, because it'll still, like, over-corrupt them.
Oh, Jesus.
And that will, if you do that too much, they can unleash, like, special attacks. So that is also like another balance thing where you have to think about it. But there are also dice and abilities that will like let you re-roll. Did you roll a really bad dice? Well, you can re-roll it. Some of the abilities, like there's one of the little guardian robots you can have. When he rolls his dice, one of his abilities could be like just straight up change red to blue. So that can be helpful. Or one robot is just like, we're just going to, re-roll a bunch of stuff. Or another example of a good dice would be like, sacrifice a dice to do damage. So if you roll a red, you can use a sacrifice dice and just it doesn't matter what's on it. It'll still like do damage or draw a card or whatever. So yeah, it's basically a card game, but the cards are dice.
Okay.
So it's very interesting.
What do you think about the story?
I mean, it's just kind of whatever. It's like, oh, the world has been corrupted by a thing and we got to uncorrupt the stuff, and oh, there's this little old lady who keeps corrupting herself, and she's kind of funny and charming and whatever. I mean, it's fine. It's not really what I play the game for.
Okay.
I beat the game. I got the ending cutscene, and I'm not going to lie, I just skipped it.
No. Kind of harsh, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's not a game I'm sitting there to hear the story for. It's even like in Dicey Dungeon, like I don't really care about the story in Dicey Dungeon.
I guess, like, my thing about... I only care in the sense that I want to know if what I predict is correct. But I'm so bad or so unlucky with Dicey Dungeon, I'm probably never going to actually get that, so...
Yeah, that's the thing, too, about this game versus Dicey Dungeon. At least in Dicey Dungeons, you have, like... You know what your equipment is. So you just have to worry about rolling the right numbers for it. In this...
Sort of, but yeah.
In this, it's kind of like... You have to worry about rolling the right dice and then rolling that dice to be the right thing.
Oof.
So it can be kind of... I mean, it's balanced in a way where you never feel too...
Frustrated?
Yeah. And like I said, there's always dice that can be like, just discard a dice to draw another dice, or discard a dice to do damage, or get shields, or whatever. So there's always like ways around, like, oh, I drew this dice and it's not what I want. But then like there are also dice that are just pretty safe to play. And there's equipment you can get too that like boosts your starter and safe equipment, so they do more damage. So that's kind of a fun playstyle that I like, where I'm not worried too much about getting frustrated. But then there's also like, you'll run into random encounters where like you can remove a negative aspect of your dice. Like, did you pick a really risky dice with 4 bad sides and 2 really good sides?
Now you can reform it.
You can reforge it so that, yeah, it'll just be like 3 and 3. Which, I mean, is still 50-50, but that's way better, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, after you beat a boss, which in each run there's 3 bosses. So after the first 2 bosses, you get epic dice, which are just really good on all 6 sides. And this only happened to me on my first playthrough, but I got one of those really good dice, and then I ran into a random encounter where it's like, let's duplicate one of your dice 3 times.
Holy
so I
shit.
used that on my epic dice, and I was just like flooded in really good attacks on that first run.
Nice.
Never ran into that effect again, but yeah, you'll run into random encounters where like sometimes it's like a bad thing, or sometimes it's a really good thing where you just get an epic dice or like a free little robot friend. And I really like the little robots too. They're really cool looking. I mean, just everything in this game is visually, it's just a 10 out of 10 visually, in my opinion. I loved the look of it. Gameplay, it was really fun, but I think I'm done. Like, I beat the game. I'm not really...
You're not one for achievements or super completing or...
If there's achievements, I don't even know. I didn't notice any, and I'm happy for that. I mean, I've already gone into it on why I don't like achievements and the pop-ups and the noise they make, but I was happy that I didn't notice any. And I don't feel like I need to play the game anymore. I've seen it, I beat it with all the characters, one of the characters twice. I'm good. I enjoyed it, and I'm not going to let it overstay its welcome, which is, I know, funny because you were just making fun of me for playing games forever.
Well, I mean, it makes sense when you're playing Minecraft forever because not only is it kind of randomized to begin with in vanilla Minecraft, but also just the fact that there's so many mods that every time you're playing it with a new mod pack, it's basically a new adventure.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that you're playing that for months at a time.
Like in this new playthrough that I'm doing, I know when you played with me for a little bit because the last episode, I think it was the last episode, you were like, yeah, I'll come play with you. And then she literally played with me for like 2 hours and then never again.
See, this is when you make fun of me, so that's fair.
So, yeah. But in that playthrough, you had found this really good, like, magic broom to fly around on.
Oh, yeah, my broom used the evil magic of blood.
Well, all of them do, basically, in that mod pack. But, you had found a really good broom. I had found a really kind of mediocre one that was really slow. But we didn't know how to recharge it. So I looked into the mod... What is it called? The mod quest list. They had built, like, a little quest where you could, like... It's basically like a tutorial.
Yeah, and they give you some experience, sometimes items.
Yeah, and like tell you like you should do this and this is how this works and now that you have this you can build this.
Well, my broom ran on blood magic.
All of them do, yeah.
Wait, I thought yours used a different magic, no?
No, the broom is from I think it's called Evil Craft mod.
Oh, okay.
And that uses blood as an energy source.
Okay.
And I didn't realize how to recharge it, but I'm like, that broom is so good, I'm going to learn this mod real quick. So I went through like the first 4 or 5 little stages on the mod quest book thing, and I was able to figure out how to recharge it, so now I can use your broom.
Well, I had an item that was congealed blood, and
Yeah.
I think the description was like, put this through a machine and then
Yeah.
you get blood back. I just didn't know what machine they wanted me to use.
That's what the mod thing would tell you. If you go from the very beginning, it's like, okay, the first thing you should do is build this little syringe thing. And basically when you carry that, when you defeat mobs, it fills with blood. Then it's like the next thing you need to do is make a little pool of blood and you can throw this dark crystal in it and it becomes like this infused dark crystal. Or fill up this drying basin with the blood and it becomes dried blood. And then you take like the dried blood chunks and the infused crystal, put it together, it makes this new item. Take that new item, make a vanilla Minecraft forge, basically, the 8 stone, but put that crystal in the middle, and that's your blood infusing thing. From there, you can use the dried blood, or the blood from the little syringe to recharge the broom. So it's pretty easy.
That sounds kind of complicated, though.
I know,
Like,
it's hard when I'm explaining it, but it's really not that bad.
because my thought was like, okay, I have this broom that uses blood.
Yeah.
I have this congealed blood. Why can't I just squish the congealed blood and then just like dip the broom in the blood or something? That seems way easier to me.
Basically, think of the congealed blood as kind of like coal for this blood furnace.
Yeah.
So you can't use it on its own. You need the machine to bring it out.
And then you put the broom in the oven?
Compartment thing of the thing. Yeah, basically. Anyway, I've been enjoying this new playthrough too, because like I tried to use like a different magic system this time, because I forget what it's called. I think it's called Iron Spells and Spell Books or something. And it basically adds like a magic system to Minecraft if you want to play like a mage or a spell sword, which is what I usually always do. And last time I played it, I had like run into this really good fire tome and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a fire mage. This time I played it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to be an evocation mage, which is like in vanilla Minecraft, there's like these pillager mage dudes and it's basically used their magic.
Okay.
So I like basically crafted his outfit and got his spell book. And I didn't...
is this when you took his DNA?
Yeah, I didn't like his spell setup. So I ended up just kind of rolling back to Fire Mage because it's just more fun and powerful in my opinion. But I'm using the Enderman teleport spell, which is really good actually, to just be able to look at like a distant block and use the teleport magic up to it. It's like,
Ooh, fancy.
It's so handy to get around.
Yeah, how far? Now you have Zoomify, right?
Yeah.
Can you use that and then go to that block? Because that gets ridiculous.
It just goes by a distance limit.
Oh,
So I think it's like, for mine, it's like 40 blocks, which is
still pretty good.
a lot, yeah. I can use that basically in combination with the Angel Wing spell from the Holy Tree to basically teleport and fly around. It's pretty nice.
I can imagine, like, hey, you see that mountain over there? Now I'm there.
I mean, especially for the Nether, just to like, oh god, I got to get up there, and I don't want to build like a nerd stack or whatever they call it.
Nerd pole. Well, I know nerd pole.
Yeah.
I don't know if that counts if it goes horizontal.
But yeah, basically I can be just like, I'm just going to look over there and teleport. Or basically, yeah, it's a blink. It's an Enderman blink. So that's like in the Ender school. So there's like a fire school, there's Ender, there's ice, there's nature, there's holy, etc.
Sweet.
But yeah, I think I showed you the whole DNA system where like you can take a cotton swab and use it on any mob. Then you use...
I'm assuming they have to be alive. This seems weird. Like,
yes.
Hey, let me get your DNA real quick.
They have to be alive, yeah. So it can be dangerous to use it on a hostile mob, but I did it anyways. Then you combine that with some like bird seeds and this like bucket of XP. You make like some special bird feed out of it. And then you give that to a chicken and it lays an egg that is basically like the Minecraft vanilla mob eggs that you can use to spawn the enemies or whatever.
When you showed me, that chicken did not lay an egg. It fucking exploded. That was messed up.
Yeah. I mean, it's the mob eggs are a vanilla Minecraft thing, but this is a way to get them, and the mod makes it funny, I guess, where like you give the chicken this like weird DNA infused seeds. It basically pumps up, explodes, and makes like a funny little happy tune.
That was nuts.
Yeah,
Poor chicken. Like, hey, watch this cool trick. Whoop.
And then it just,
oh shit.
Yeah, it just goes like "Happy Birthday, Taco," and it makes like a song. It's I don't know why it does that, but sure, okay.
Again, it's probably just some really weird inside joke from the mod creator.
Yeah. Anyway, you take that egg and then like put it in like a spawner. So if you got like Silk Touch on your pickaxe, you can pick up spawners. Use that to change what the spawner spawns. And this is a vanilla mechanic.
No,
but
I know.
Then you just basically build like a mob farm. So I got like this little dungeon under my house where like there's like spinning contraption that just grinds up the mobs that spawn out of that thing.
God, that's fucked up.
And I use that to like, just get a bunch of spells from the pyromancer mage. So
They're
now
just like clones of this one dude.
Yeah. Between that and like the blazes that I got spawning and a bunch of zombies and skeletons for like XP. I mean, yeah, that's a Minecraft thing. I mean,
No, I know, but oh god.
it's funny.
I create these beings and then I just put them through this like blender.
Yeah, that's Minecraft for you when you want to grind XP easily. Because like if you want to enchant your gear, you need a lot of XP. So, yeah. So yeah, I got my full set of like pyromancer armor and like a bunch of good spells, and now next time I play, I'm gonna go into the Twilight Forest or the Bumble Zone.
Bumble Zone? That sounds like bumblebees.
Yeah, it's
okay.
One of the mods basically is like you can either throw an ender pearl into a beehive or you can use a piston to push yourself into the beehive and you go into the Bumble Zone. Yeah, I'll have to show you. I haven't done it yet, but I have it set up ready to go. That in the Twilight Forest, which I've played the Twilight Forest years ago, so it'll be fun to go in there again as a overpowered fire mage.
And just to see like what they've changed from there.
Yeah, it's been ages.
If they've changed anything. I mean, I'm sure they have, but
yeah, I mean, literally, I haven't played that in years. I don't even know how old that mod is, but I really liked the vibe of it back then, so it'll be fun to go in there again. Anyway, yeah, suddenly I was talking about Minecraft again. But I've been enjoying it, and I will continue to enjoy it for a little bit, so whatever.
That's fine. I mean, the adventure changes every time, so feel free to keep us updated on the Bumblebee world, I guess.
The Bumble Zone is what it's called. There's also a bunch of other world zones.
Bumble Zone, Danger Zone,
Yeah, there's the Bumble Zone, there's the Twilight Forest, there's obviously like the Nether, there's the End, which I don't think I've done much with.
Yeah, I mean, with all your powers now, just go and beat the shit out of the dragon.
In normal vanilla Minecraft, to get to the end, you need like, I think 9 ender eyes. And then you have to find the dungeon where the portal is and put the eyes in there. In a lot of these modded Minecraft things, I guess people are bored about going to the end too easily, so they made it a lot harder.
Oh, okay.
So you got to find 9 different versions of the Ender Eye.
Oh, Jesus.
Some of them you find in drops or in chests, and some of them you like craft, like, I don't know. And I have not touched that side of things at all. I don't know if I'll do that, to be honest with you. Probably not. Anyway, I think I've talked enough. How about you tell me what you've been doing?
Oh, boy. Okay. Now it's my turn. I know I talked about this vaguely on a previous podcast, in the idea of during certain times of the year or certain seasons, do you get a certain urge to play a certain type of game?
Yeah.
Certain. Well, it's been really cold lately. I know not as cold compared to certain places, like the Midwest can get like...
Below freezing is cold enough.
Yeah, I know. Poor you. So we've been basically under the 30s for a couple of weeks at this point. And especially with the wind chill, I don't know what it is about where we live. It gets really fucking windy. So I've been feeling a little bit like, it's cold out here, so why not play some cold games, right? I don't know. If I'm going to suffer, I might as well suffer an adventure.
Yeah.
So I tried a little bit of The Long Dark. And I play that periodically. I was doing pretty good on one of my last runs. I think it's, Mystery Lake?
That's the one with all the houses and stuff?
Yeah, or no, I think that's the highway that you're thinking of.
Oh.
I think Mystery Lake is where you have... I guess that you do have some of the little cabins around the lake. You have the ice...
Yeah, gotcha.
The ice huts on the lake, and you can go fishing and stuff.
That was like the starter zone for me.
Basically. And I set up shop, if you will, in the Canadian Outpost hut, I think it is.
That's like one of the best houses, yeah.
Yeah. And I stayed there for a while. I did finally manage to, like, understand a little bit more of, like, you know, oh, it's windy. But sometimes when it's windy, it's, like, actually warmer, it seems. I don't know. And then you get the storm, so I just stay inside. And I managed to find a couple of those books where you can, like, increase your skills. So I would use this every so often, like, oh, I gotta wait for something, or I'm waiting on a storm, so I have enough light, I can read this book and gain some skills. Go out adventuring. I would find plenty of dead deer out and about. Once you find a knife, well, you'll want a knife. A knife does better in skinning the animal and taking out its intestines, you'll have to dry both of those items to get pelts, and the dried guts will turn into like strings that you can, I think you can make like bows and other items. I forget what exactly.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
But if you want to chop off the flesh, you can still use the knife if that's all you have. But if you get enough flesh, you kind of want to use the axe instead. It just makes it faster.
I think it depends, too, because if...
How frozen it is.
Yeah, so if you freshly killed it yourself, you're probably still better off with the knife. But if you're scavenging frozen carcasses, yeah, the axe is better.
Yeah. And even if you're scavenging frozen corpses, you can also put a fire next to it and it'll slowly throw it out.
Yeah, and it's also good because, like, as you're scavenging, like, time goes on, so you'll be getting cold anyway, so you might as well.
You'll be getting cold, you'll start stinking like meat, basically, and that has a chance of attracting the wolves, but if you put the fire, they're usually kind of put off by the fire.
Yeah. So
you can use that. I didn't actually end up killing any of the deer myself. All the deer meat that I found was just naturally already dead, which, silly me kind of made me happy. I didn't have to kill anything.
It's hard to kill them, too.
Yeah,
unless you have the rifle.
I guess shotgun, but yeah, I guess the rifle probably better. The only things I had to kill were the wolves that came after me, which I tried to keep my distance, but they'll see you eventually, they'll smell you, and they'll come running over, and well, I have to defend myself. So I think I ended up killing 2 or 3 different wolves, which again gave me more pelts, more intestines to dry out, and more meat. And it's also, even if you find a house that has a kitchen setup, which I think the only houses that I'm aware of that tend to have that are on the highway section, and that's a couple of maps away. The Canadian Outpost doesn't, like the ranger's house doesn't have a kitchen. It has 2 stoves and you can cook on that, but it doesn't have it doesn't have cupboards, it doesn't have the refrigerator. But even if you find a house with a refrigerator, because the power's basically out, you can store food in there to some degree. But one, I guess, trick, if you will, is if you have fresh flesh, you can just dump it outside.
In the snow, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll just keep longer if you happen to have meat on you. Otherwise, all the other items keep pretty decently in just, I don't know, the filing cabinet that I put it in. So I was doing a pretty good run, and then my dumbass was like, well, I can't stay here forever. Eventually I'm gonna run out of things. I'm gonna run out of wood to keep the fires going. I'm gonna run out of things to scavenge from, I think there's like one car down around where the power plant is. And I went through the power plant and I scavenged most of the stuff from there. I'm like, okay, I'm going to just wait for the decent weather. I'm going to pack up. I'm going to make my way to the highways because I like going through all the houses and the post office and all that stuff. Well, I kind of forgot how far the highway was. And I went through...
Yeah, because you got to go through like some mountain pass or something first, right?
First, you go through, I think, an area that's kind of, I guess you would count it as swampy, but of course it's frozen. And it was, when I set out in the morning, not only was it a little bit too cold, perhaps, but there was also fog.
Also what?
Fog.
Fog, okay.
So my dumb ass was like, well, I think in this first map, there's a turn to the right, and there's supposed to be, if I'm remembering correctly, like a little camp spot and potentially a bow and some arrows or something. Well, I took the turn off the main trail, if you will, and it was foggy and I kind of got lost. I survived, it was fine, but it took me a while to find my way back to the main trail or road, whatever you want to call it. So that didn't help.
Yeah, because like in this game, for the people that don't know, you don't get like a map where you get like a little cursor and you can't just look at a map and be like, this is where I am. You kind of have to figure it out yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you're out in the wilderness. There are no maps that I'm aware of that you can find. You can draw your own map, which I had been doing. But if you're looking at a paper map, you're not going to see where you are.
Yeah.
You're not going to see what direction you're headed to. This is more realistic, and it's going to fucking suck.
Yeah, there's a fun to it that way, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun because if you die in the game, you don't die in real life.
Well, video games in general.
So I finally find my way back to the main road, and I'm like, okay, that was a dumb fucking mistake. The sun's getting high. I got to make sure that I get someplace before it gets dark, blah, blah, blah. And because this one map is part frozen swamp, there's areas where there's the icy water that you can walk on, and then there's places that have like dry land right next to it, and it's kind of like mixed in pretty well. Well, I kind of forgot that not all the ice here is super thick. So I'm walking across some ice, maybe because I'm carrying all my shit with me, so I'm like...
Heavier?
Yeah, I think it's like 60 pounds or whatever weight they use up in Canada, I guess.
Oh my god, it's kilograms.
Fine, whatever. I don't know what kilograms means to pounds, whatever.
Can I just say one thing, though? I love how this game handles weight in your bags. It's not like Fallout or Skyrim where, like, uh-oh, I picked up one spoon, suddenly I'm over encumbered and walk like a snail.
Oh, yeah, it's a gradual encumbrance.
So, like...
You can be over encumbered, you just gain the risk of moving slower. You gain the risk of spraining an ankle or a wrist, especially if you're also walking, like, up a hill, like at a...
Or down a hill, yeah.
Up a hill, down a hill, if you're going sideways along said hill, if the slope is too much. Yeah, I did that a couple of times and I sprained my, like, both hands multiple times. Just like, okay, I'll wrap it in a bandage and, like, chuck down some pills.
Yeah, I like it because, like, it's not overly punishing. Like, you can be a little overweight. You just have to be careful. Like, okay, if I'm a little overweight, I gotta be careful where I'm walking and stuff. And you don't want to go too overweight because you will slow down. But it's not like...
And then you can't run if a wolf comes after your ass.
Yeah, but it's not like Fallout where suddenly, like, oh no, I accidentally picked up a pencil. I have to stop everything and look through my inventory to throw out the pencil because otherwise I move at a snail's pace.
Yeah. This is much better implemented.
I wish more games would do that. Like, Bethesda, fucking take notes, please. Other survival games, too. Just, that's the way to do it.
Agreed. Although the only thing I will say for this game in particular is I get that I can't jump, but there are certain things where, like, I could easily lift my foot to go over this plank.
Yeah, I mean, to be
I
fair,
could maybe crawl over this fallen tree, but other than that, yeah.
yeah, that's a lot of games that do that. I was like, oh, this fence is like flimsy as hell, but it is an insurmountable wall.
Yeah. But other than that, yeah, this game's good.
Anyway, sorry for the interruption.
So, I'm going over this ice. I'm a little too heavy, and oh shit, I hear the cracking. I try to run, but it's too late. I fall through the ice. I'm absolutely fucking frigid. Oh god. And, like, you're wet, you're heavy, it's fucking cold outside. You, like, instantly get hypothermia, I believe. So, I try to get to one of the patches of land, and I thought, well, maybe this was just a bad area. I try to go to another area. I fall through the ice 3 fucking times.
Oof, you were in a bad spot there.
Yeah, it was a bad mistake. I did manage to set up a fire, and I happened to have a piece of coal on me, which coal in this game is like, I think, a pound or 2 for itself. And it doesn't necessarily make the fire go that much longer, but it increases the heat like a fuck ton. So I put the one thing of coal that I had left. I take off the few items of clothing, like I think the outer pants, the outer shirt.
The soaked stuff.
Yeah. I take that off and put it immediately right next to the fire, and I do good. It's not a great situation, but the coal definitely helps, because I think then the temperature was like 50 degrees, like right next to the fire. It dried up everything real quick. I still technically had hypothermia, because in order for hypothermia to go away, you need to stay not soaking wet for at least 9 hours. I didn't make it that far. But the other thing that fucked me over was that when you get the hypothermia, or maybe you just get the super chill or whatever, even though I tried to lay down at least for a quick nap, my energy was absolutely sapped. So I have no energy even after all my clothes are dry. I try to pack all my stuff up. I do my absolute best to keep more towards the land and only take the very slight bits of water that connects the various pieces of land. And I try to make my way to the train tracks, which is the main road, basically.
Yeah.
But now it's at nighttime. Now it's cold. I still have hypothermia. I have no energy. Everything fucking sucks.
Yeah.
But I slowly just keep going. I think I take one of like the energy go drinks or something, which gives you a burst of energy, but then once it goes away, you get like a 15-minute headache or something, so your vision's kind of all fucked up. Finally finish getting through this map. Then the next map is not the highway. Now it's the mountain pass that you had brought up earlier. So I followed the mountain pass, but then there's 2 paths that you can take. I ended up staying on the main path, but that actually ended up blocked by like a landslide or something later on. Then when I try to turn around, there's a wolf. I'm like, oh my fucking god. Needless to say, I didn't survive the wolf. So I just kind of ended up dying there. And then I was so frustrated with that I haven't played it since.
Well, I mean, you died, so like that game is over, right?
Yeah, that particular run is over, and I can always obviously go back and, try another random start or something.
I think you went the wrong way, because I think normally to get to the highway, it's like a little town, a suburban town.
As close to suburban as this place gets, but yeah.
I thought it was through a mountain pass, not through the rail yard through the swamp. Because like you can access the city, or sorry, this little town, the highway, from 2 different sides. So I think there's one shorter route.
I don't know, because if I went to the other side at the power plant, you couldn't get through that mountain pass, and if you go through the power plant, you have to go all the way down, and then you leave out the backside, but that's just another like mountainous lake area or something. I don't know. I'd have to check the map, like the world map itself. I think if I went through this mountain pass, it might have been on the other side. Or maybe like you have to go through the cave system. I don't remember. It's long, and there's like a ton of maps that neither of us have ever seen.
Yeah, true. There's so many new areas. I should play that game again one day. Maybe I'll do that after Minecraft.
Maybe you should. And see how far, because
like the new one is coming out soon, and yeah, I mean,
I don't know how soon. I think they just literally announced it, but
I think it's relatively soon, actually. I'll have to double check. I mean, they're an indie company, so
That's fair.
they can't be Bethesda and like put out a trailer and then be like, okay, see you in 3 years.
Even 3 years, yeah. I agree, and also just I do look forward to that because it showed more people in the trailer. And
It'll
if
be
we
multiplayer, yeah.
Yeah, if we can maybe play together.
Yeah, I can't wait to play with you for 2 hours and then never see you again.
Okay, fine. But also next time I play, maybe I'll actually try to do the story again because they finally finished all the episodes. So if I can just get through the pain in the ass of helping grandma in the house.
That one's the easy one. It's the second dude that's like, I need you to kill this bear 7 times.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, I think I did eventually kill the bear last time.
That's the part where I stopped playing. Okay, so for those who don't know, this game has a survival mode and a story mode. It started in early access with just a survival mode, but then later on they added the story mode.
And like it's episodic, so there's like 3, I guess, chapters, episodes, whatever you want to call it, or sorry, 6 chapters or episodes. They finally finished the 6th one. I don't think I made it. Yeah, I got stuck in chapter 2, I think. Or was it chapter 1? I don't fucking remember.
No, the first chapter is like eventually you meet that old lady. The second chapter, I think, is eventually you meet the guy with he's like, his white whale is the bear, basically. Yeah. And he's like, shoot him a bunch of times. And that's when I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore.
I think I got stuck in one loop where I was trying to survive on fish, but then I would eat the fish, and then I would fish for more fish, but then that took all the energy, and I was stuck in this weird loop. It was a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But I'll try again.
It's interesting in its own way, but I think the real meat of the game is the survival mode.
Yeah, I think that's... If you went, like, on the forum or the subreddit or whatever, at least when I played it way back years ago, the survival mode was basically what everyone played.
Yeah, I think they know that, and that's what they're targeting for the sequel with multiplayer stuff, too.
That's fair. And now that they're done with the episodes, I don't know if they said that they would eventually allow modding after the episodes or not. Because, like, I get that they have their episodes and they want people to play it how they envisioned it, and that's perfectly fine. But as far as, like, the endless survival mode or something, I feel like they should allow mods, because there are certain things I would personally like to see different. But
I wonder. I can't even think of mods I would install there. But yeah, I always love mods, so...
Now on to the second of the snow games, if you will.
Sure.
Why'd you laugh?
I don't know, just the way you were saying that.
Okay. The other game I've been playing is one of the games that I got in the...
Jingle Jam?
The Jingle Jam donation bundle thing. And that would be Frostpunk. Now, if you thought the temperatures in the long dark were bad, those were actually temperatures that exist. So right now, our world is slowly heating up.
Yeah.
But what if you lived in a dystopian world where the opposite was happening instead? Now...
Ice Age.
Yeah, basically, a new Ice Age. In the world of Frostpunk... Now, I didn't get this actually in the cinematic. I don't know if they brought it up in the cinematic and I just completely forgot, or if I just didn't get the hints in other parts of the game. Apparently, this takes place in, like, the late 1880s. I thought it was more like our times. And I guess I didn't... Maybe I should have picked that up on, like, the clothing and the art or something, but whatever. It's the late 1880s.
It's like steampunk, too, though. It has, like, robots in it, right?
Yeah, there are automatons? Automatons. I don't know why I was... Whatever. There are automatons that you can... The first one you come across, and then the other ones you can eventually build if you build a factory. So the world of Frostpunk is the sun is basically dimming for some reason. They never really explain it, but this is only the first...
I mean, it'll happen eventually.
Yeah, but I don't know if it would happen quite like this. But I've only played the first scenario, and I streamed my second run through of the first scenario, and I'm kind of sad that I didn't end up streaming this third one, but whatever. Oh god, this is the point where I was like trying to put all my ideas in something cohesive, and it's absolutely not at all cohesive. The world is chilly. You're starting in London. You join this group of people that are heading up north because there's some kind of generator thing in the north. And I guess also the north has more coal, I guess, access or something.
Makes sense.
I guess, I don't know how
Well, I
it
don't know.
fucking works,
I don't
but
know the UK's, geography, but like some places will have more coal than others. So yeah.
yeah. So it's like, because people were like, wait, why don't they just go down south? But I think the whole world has chilled completely, so it doesn't really matter if you go north or south, it's all the same. So you start this settlement around this generator, and this generator will keep your people relatively warm if you take care of said generator. It's kind of like a cold version of Banished, but a little bit more intricate in how it works. Because, like, you have to keep there's two main ways you try to keep your people happy. You have to keep up their hope that we're going to survive this somehow.
Okay.
But on the other hand, you also have to keep their discontent down. Because, well, otherwise, if the discontent goes up too much, you're going to be thrown out or hanged, whatever. Apparently, I guess that is a way that... for the 2 times I lost this game, I was only exiled. Although exiled in the frozen wasteland is basically death anyways, I guess. So you're in charge of this little town. There are a book of laws that you can use. And there's all these different types of things. There's one of the main ones that comes up frequently is you can enact a law where children either go to work or children are given shelters. And for all the times I've run this game, I've always picked that children just have the shelters. It feels almost wrong to put children to work even in this massive hellscape.
Yeah, I mean, people did work.
Especially in the 1800s. Like,
Yeah.
That was just basically a fucking given. But say we've gotten to the point where we're trying to keep the kids out of the coal mines. And there's all these other different, like there's one law about how to feed the people. You can either give them soup, which will make the food rations go further, but they'll be upset. Or you add in food additives like, I don't know, plaster or some shit. I don't know what they would add to it.
Yeah, like
and
when
that
they used
makes
to add-
people sad.
Yeah, they had like chalk to bread back in the day.
Yeah, that makes people sad. So those are like those food laws. I'm assuming if you want to stay ethical as possible and try to keep your people happy, you don't want to touch either of those. Whereas the child laws, you can pick either good or bad depending on how you view it. Then there's just a bunch of laws, and some are good, some are bad, some are neutral. And then at some point, you'll get a second book of laws. You can either pick the path of giving people hope through order, and like using guards and patrolling the areas to try and keep people somewhat sane and safe. Or you can pick the religious one where you'll start building churches and give people hope through like prayer or something. I actually have not yet even elected to go with the religious one. I've only seen the order one so far. So I don't know exactly what they have in there other than like churches and stuff. I'm assuming both sides can have their ways to going towards, I guess you would say, fascism. So you know how like in RimWorld people will joke that like it's a war crime simulator and
Yeah.
you start eating other people and cannibalizing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, apparently I guess like a joke-ish about this is that you'll turn like to fascism for some reason. And like I can see how in the order law book that you can start building prisons, you can start putting people in prisons, because at some point you'll find that one of the other big towns that also came to the north has fallen, and people start losing their minds. Their hope goes down like 80% regardless of how much hope you have.
Now these story events, are they random, or is it always like this is a story that's always happening?
There's a little bit of both, I
Okay.
think, but I think it is more story oriented.
Okay.
Because I saw a few news story things, depending on how happy you keep them. You won't see as many as the bad ones. Because my first 2 playthroughs, it was a lot of bad things, because I had no idea what the fuck I'm doing. The third playthrough went a lot better, because I ended up looking up only 2 videos, and it was just, I kept it to beginner tips. Because there are other videos, and they're like, this is the perfect start, and this is a great run, and blah, blah, blah. I didn't want that kind of help. I didn't want to know, like, oh, this is how exactly you should set things up. I just wanted the basic tips so that I could know basically more than what the game tells you. The game will only tell you so much, which makes sense. If you want people to like replay the game and learn on their own, that's how it's going to go. But I guess you could say, slightly frustrated that I didn't know the specifics. So during the third run, this went way better. And I realized, okay, I can build more than one workshop, which is where you start researching. And there's like all these tech trees, if you will.
Okay.
And going down, and you really got to make sure you have all the coal that you need, because that's the main thing. The main things you need are the coal for the generator and the food for the people. Like, yes, there's wood and steel, because obviously you need that to build the buildings and stuff. But I feel like I put most of my stuff into trying to feed the people and keep the generator running.
Okay.
This game is good, but oh my god, I don't know why I'm so bad at like fucking reiterating how these things work.
You're doing fine. You don't have to go into every detail, so like let's skip ahead towards like the end, I guess.
Okay, so towards the end, your scientists come running in and they're like, holy shit, there's this storm coming. This is why all these like refugees. There was 3 groups of refugees. You can either let them all in, which is what I took because I don't want to be a piece of shit. You can take in only the healthy ones, or you can just tell all the refugees to go fuck themselves, which is kind of a dick move. So I obviously didn't pick that. And after you rescue or allow all the refugees in, the scientist comes running up and he's like, holy shit, there's a storm running. This is what all the refugees were running from. It's going to get bad. So there's like this period of time that you have to try and pull all your people back into town, because sometimes you'll send scouts out to find things and find more people and survivors and stuff. You have to get enough resources for your people. Like, you have to have a certain amount of food rations in order to keep your people alive for this like week-long storm. And I ended up building a lot more hunter cabins, because they go out to hunt at night. I don't know what exactly they're hunting. There's never anything about what animals are still surviving, but somehow they can magically come back with like 20 bits of meat per hunter house. Tried to get up the raw foods that turns into food rations up. I tried to get enough coal for the generator and all the research that you need. You need to get the generator up to its highest. There's like multiple stages. There's 4 stages. I had to get all that. Had to allow the generator to go into overdrive, and then you have to research overdrive, and then I additionally researched another thing for the overdrive that would increase it slower and let it fall back down faster, because the generator has the 4 stages of heat, but there's the overdrive, and if you put it in overdrive, it obviously heats further out. But if you keep that on too long, the generator will just stress out and fucking explode, and everyone dies and the game over.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I did my best to research all that stuff, get all the resources, but then the storm still hits. Now, the game told me that for all the like 600 something people I had in this town, I needed about like between 3,000 and 3,500 rations of food. I think we went into the storm with just under 2,500 rations. So I'm like, oh, this is not going to go good. And then I had a couple of days. I think we ended up starting the storm with about 3 days worth of coal. And I was kind of expecting that everyone was going to stop working during the storm, since they said it was going to be like a massive fall in temperature, but it's actually progressive. So the people were still working, which was great, because...
I mean, mining's underground anyways, right? So...
Well, yes, the mining happens underground, but the gathering is still on the top of the surface.
Figured the coal miners would be happy to be underground mining during a storm.
You would think that, but I had automatons working the coal mines, because the coal mines make the most. The automatons can work 24 hours. So I was like, okay, let's keep them on the one that makes the most, and the people can work on the other ones.
Do they have to worry about cold?
No. Okay. Thankfully not. Although they do use the little steam heat vents as generation every now and then.
Oh, okay.
So they'll go over to the steam fence, kind of like sit on it, recharge, and then go back to work. It's kind of cute. They almost look like giant like puppies, how they do things. Or at least that's how I saw it. I don't know. So during the start of the storm, we had about 3 days. People keep working and gathering as best as they can as the temperature starts falling. Now, even before the storm, sometimes the temperature will drop to like 94 degrees. Or, yeah, negative
94
90.
below.
Yes. So the temperature is already fucking like ravaging people before a storm hits. This storm hits and now it's sitting around negative 124 degrees. This is like fucking ridiculous. But somehow most of the people still have enough hope that they're gathering the coal. And it's just every other day the temperature starts falling again and again. And it's just, we can't hunt or grow any food while this storm is hitting. So we're stuck with the rations we have. And they were like 1,000 less than what we were supposed to have for everyone.
The safe estimate.
Yeah, the safe estimate. I tried to turn on the soup thing and that made people sad, but I think that was probably not needed only because we ended up running out of raw food soon after. So, like, the law went into effect. People got sad about it, but then I don't think we turned much of that into the soup. I don't know. I feel like that law maybe was not worth it at the time that I put it on. Anyways, we're going through the storm. The rations are going down. The coal is constantly saying, like, we have less than 24 hours. But because we keep restocking it, it kind of sits at, oh, we got less than 23 hours worth for, like, a couple of days. So we're keeping up with it a little bit better than I had initially thought. And while I see these numbers slowly dwindling and the temperature is going further down and more people are getting sick because we can't... The generator is, like, at its fucking peak, but even with that, everyone's house is... Or, I didn't get to the houses. Everyone's bunker is in the very cold or freezing aspect. So everyone's getting sick. I only have so many infirmaries taking care of people. And this entire time, I'm like, I'm going to put on the overdrive... and it's going to slowly fill up. And I'm thinking ethically, I don't want my people to slowly freeze to death, and I don't want my people to slowly starve to death. So if we get to the point where we're running out of food, and we're all freezing to death anyways, I'm just going to let the overdrive go to 100 and just explode everything. Because I was like, ethically, that would be out of all the deaths that these people could suffer, that would be the quickest one. So I'm letting it fill up, and it's taken a while, but it actually is like keeping people a little bit warmer. So that's a positive while it fills up to, potentially explode. And then at some point, I forget if it was like the fourth day or something, the scientists, like, quote unquote, run back in, and they're like, okay, at one point, you're going to see that the temperature is going to just absolutely bottom out. But if we survive those few hours, the storm will pass and then we'll be out of it. And I'm like, I just don't know if we're going to be able to survive. And I see as the overdrive is going higher and higher, and it gets, I don't know.
Is it like a gauge, when it's going to happen, or is it kind of like...
Yeah, it'll show the gauge, and it'll slowly fill up. And I start getting around 80, and then I'm like, eh. So I turn off the overdrive, but that means everyone starts getting upset because they're fucking freezing. Then the main temperature drop, and it's like fucking negative 260 degrees. Like, everyone's just bundled at home. Whatever coal we have, whatever rations we have, that's all we have. So I'm basically going between, do I let the overdrive just fucking explode? Do I let them freeze for a little bit and try to save some coal? Once that negative 200 something hits you, even at stage 4 of the generator, even with overdrive, everyone's freezing anyway. So I turn off the overdrive. I downgrade the generator to stage 1 because everything's frozen regardless. So we might as well save the coal. And then next thing I know, the screen pops up and says, we survived. And I'm like, holy shit, we fucking made it. Because, like, this entire time, everything's going to shit. Everyone's getting sick. The rations are... We ended up running out of rations like 2 days beforehand, but the people don't start starving until like 3 days in. So I'm like, okay, we'll just see if we can make it. And then the screen just pops up. We end up surviving negative 260 whatever degrees Fahrenheit. And then once the sun comes up on the next day, the temperature rises back to like a normal, like say a negative 20 or something. Something that...
Damn, that's fast.
Yeah, it was just a super drop, and then the storm passed.
There's going to be a lot of cracking metal and glass.
Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know. I had played it multiple times before. I had streamed on the second run, and I couldn't get past like day 20 or something. And now we're sitting at day 38 and the storm passes and we survive and we come out the other end. And I'm like, holy shit, that was absolutely fucking insane. And like, I wish I could just kind of get across how surprised and I was at this and the ethical concerns. I was like, what way are we going to end up start dying first? And do I just explode the generator to get it over with? And then somehow we made it through, and it's just like, oh God, that was good. It was an absolute pain in the ass, and I had to look at 2 videos to try and get beginner tips, and then just the relief was like, wow. And it happened at like 11 o'clock last night.
Sounds kind of like a Dark Souls boss.
I mean, kind of. It's just nature, but it is a boss that you have to defeat, and you're going through all these feelings, and you're like, what do I do for my people? And I managed to not turn into a fascist and kept like 600 something people alive during this whole thing. And oh, it was fucking bonkers, man. It's a good game. I'm sorry that I just cannot explain this well enough. I know I try to explain too much of
maybe we get too into the weeds
itself, but it's just, God, if you have the ability to get Frostpunk, I'd say go for it, because this is good. And there's like 4 other scenarios I can play after this.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is just one of the storylines. There are others. I don't know if the map changes with those. I don't know what the stories of the other ones are, so there are still things for me to explore, even though I played through this bit and survived. And it's just, it's not really a surprise, though, I think, that I felt so impacted by the choices I had to make, and whether I threw someone out into the cold to die, or if I kept them there, but then people would just be more discontented because the Londoner group would just disrupt everything, and they started stealing shit, and I don't know, it was crazy. But this is by 11-Bit Studios, I believe, who also made this War of Mine.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt like when I started up this game that was like, this art feels familiar, but I couldn't exactly place it. And then I figured out that, oh, they made this War of Mine, and I'm like, that's where the art comes from. It must be the same artist, because it's basically the same thing. And it's like, in that, this War of Mine is also a game where it's incredibly tough, and it's like supposed to, because the world sucks and everything's going to hell, and they make the game in such a way that you're gonna feel it.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, now that I've finished this first scenario, I got the basic idea. Maybe I'll play their next game, and then we can...
Well, they are making a sequel.
Well, yes, they did make Frostpunk 2. I think it's already out.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So not only did they make that sequel, but yeah, this War of Mine. I think I have the complete edition or the uncut version or some kind of special version of it or whatever. So I think I do want to play that, and then maybe one day I'll be able to like explain that game without being a fucking jumbled mess, but
we'll work on it.
Yeah.
I think maybe we'll just I don't know, we'll discuss it later. Just
yeah, I'm sorry for anyone that just
no,
won't listen
okay.
to my shit, but
I think we can like maybe a better thing to do would be just focus on the overall
story
gist of it instead of like here as gripping as it is, like, yeah,
mechanics.
Because now I'm kind of like, oh, this sounds really cool, but then I'm like, well, I kind of know what happens. Do I really want to play it?
Well, yeah, I mean, fair, but again, there are 4 other scenarios, so I haven't completely spoiled the game for the most part.
But I can see how, like, it's a game where you get those feelings, and that's like it tickles those emotions where it's like, oh wow, it's sad, but also like thrilling, but also like scary in a way, like. Not like in a horror way, but like...
I mean, it's horror, it's natural horror,
yeah.
I guess.
And just like overcoming and the hope of it all and like, wow, we did it. And that's humanity in general.
Yeah. And if you're a person that has, I don't know, a higher level of empathy where you really you're really able to put yourself in how other people are feeling. I know there's certain levels people might not be able to feel that as much as other people. But if you do have that and you play this, you're going to feel it. Like, yeah, this is just I don't know, there's something about this. It really gets to me.
That's good. I'm glad you had such a good experience with it.
A good but ethical conundrum at some points.
You were emotionally moved.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And it was good. So.
Yeah, it sounds good. I mean, it's very well regarded by a lot of people, so I'm not surprised. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I kind of already get into, like, town and city builders.
Yeah.
And there are some times where you will probably have to micromanage things. And there was actually one of the videos I watched had a tip, and I tried to implement that tip, but I guess they had patched it out or something because it didn't work for me. So I was like, okay, fine. I mean, that makes sense. I get it, but yeah, it's just it's crazy. And I'm just happy that I could come out of the other end of the story and not turn into a fascist. But maybe that has to happen in one of the other storylines. I don't know. Because, like, I know I've played Vermworld, and sometimes I've gone into the war crimes simulator, so I don't know what that says about me, but I try my best not to, but then sometimes you just get curious.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of how with, like, Undertale, a lot of people were like, I can't do the genocide route, and I did it, but whatever. Well, anyway, that was one hell of a talk, huh?
Yeah, I guess I'm weird rambling on my end.
No, it's okay. I know I do that too.
So I guess that's it for this week, and we love you, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. That's right. Bye-bye.
Be good. Bye.